Every great doctor you see today was once just a person with a dream. But what if that dream felt impossible? What if the world kept telling you you don't belong here? This is the story of Daniel Osei, a boy who grew up with nothing. No money, no connections, no safety net. Just one thing, a burning desire to heal people. Stay with me, because this story will teach you beautiful English, and it might just change the way you see your own life. Daniel was born in a small, dusty village in Ghana, West Africa. The kind of village where the roads are not paved, where electricity comes and goes like an unreliable friend, where most families eat once, maybe twice a day. His mother, Grace, sold vegetables at the local market. She woke up before sunrise every single morning, even in the rainy season. Even when she was sick and she carried heavy baskets on her head to the market, 2 kilometers away. His father had left when Daniel was only 4 years old. Daniel barely remembered his face. He had 2 younger sisters, Adwoa and Ama, and he loved them more than anything in the world. Every night, the 3 children slept together on a single mat on the floor, and every night, Daniel would look up at the ceiling and think. He thought about the future. He thought about a doctor he had once seen in his village, a man in a clean white coat, who arrived in a big blue car, who spoke calmly and confidently, who touched a sick child's forehead and knew exactly what to do. That image never left him. He was 6 years old when he decided, "I will become a doctor," he told his mother one evening. Grace looked at her son. Her eyes were tired from the long day. Her hands were rough and dry from work. But she smiled a smile full of love and sadness at the same time. "Then you will become a doctor," she said quietly. She didn't say how. She didn't say when. She just believed him. Daniel was, without question, the brightest student in his school. His teacher, Mr. Mensah, noticed this immediately. While other children struggled with their multiplication tables, Daniel had already moved on to division. While others were reading simple sentences, Daniel was reading full paragraphs out loud with expression. But school in the village only went up to primary level. After that, the nearest secondary school was far away in the city, and the FEs were more money than his mother earned in 3 months. Daniel was 12 years old when he realized this. He sat with his mother after dinner, doing the math on a small piece of paper. Numbers don't lie. His mother watched him add and subtract and add again, as if a different answer might appear. It never did. "Don't worry," his mother said, but her voice cracked slightly on the word worry. Just slightly. Daniel heard it. That night, he did not sleep. He stared at the ceiling, and for the first time in his young life, he felt something cold and heavy sitting on his chest. Doubt. Maybe the world was right. Maybe boys like him, boys from villages like this, did not become doctors. Maybe dreams were only for people who could afford them. But then morning came, and with the morning came Mr. Mensah, knocking on their door. He had heard about Daniel's situation. He had spent the entire previous evening writing a letter to a scholarship program in the city. He handed it to Grace. "Your son is exceptional," he said. "The world should know that." The letter was sent. Then came the hardest part of Daniel's young life. Waiting. Every day, he walked to school. Every day, he came home. Every day, he asked his mother, did anything come? Every day, the answer was the same. Not yet. Weeks passed. The rains came heavy that season. The roof of their small house leaked, and they placed plastic buckets on the floor to catch the water at night. The sound of raindrops hitting the bucket, plop, 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 became the soundtrack of Daniel's anxiety. Then, one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a letter arrived. Daniel was at school when it came. His mother held it in her hands, afraid to open it. She turned it over and over, reading the official logo on the front. When Daniel came home and saw the envelope on the table, he stopped walking. He stopped breathing. His mother looked at him. "Open it," she whispered. His hands were shaking as he tore the envelope open. He read the first line. Then he read it again. "Dear Daniel Osei, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected." He couldn't finish reading. He burst into tears. His mother burst into tears. His two little sisters, who didn't fully understand what was happening, also burst into tears, because when your mother and brother cry, you cry too. It was the most beautiful chaos that small house had ever seen. The city was overwhelming. Daniel arrived with one bag. Inside it, two changes of clothes, a small photograph of his mother and sisters, and a worn-out notebook he had been writing in since he was 8. The secondary school was enormous compared to anything he had ever known. The other students seemed so confident, so polished. They wore clean uniforms without patches. They spoke quickly, switching between languages, laughing loudly in the hallways. Daniel felt invisible. In the first week, a boy named Kweku looked at Daniel's old shoes and laughed. "Where are you from?" Kweku asked, smirking. "The village." Daniel looked at him calmly. "Yes," he said, "and one day, I will be your doctor." The hallway went quiet. Then Daniel walked away. That was the moment Daniel made a second decision, not just to survive in this new world, but to dominate it. He studied when others slept. He read textbooks by flashlight under his blanket. He asked teachers questions after class, questions that sometimes even surprised them. He still missed his mother terribly. Every Sunday, he called her from a shared phone at the dormitory. The calls were always short, credit was expensive, but in those 2 or 3 minutes, Grace would always say the same thing. "How are your grades?" "Good, Mama." "Are you eating?" "Yes, Mama." "Are you sleeping?" "Yes, Mama." She always knew he was lying about the sleeping, but she never pushed, because she also knew great things require sacrifice. Daniel was 17 when the phone call came. It was a Wednesday. He was in the middle of a chemistry exam. A teacher came to the door, whispered something to the examiner, and then looked at Daniel. "Come with me." His heart dropped like a stone. He followed the teacher into the hallway. The teacher handed him the phone. Slowly. It was his aunt's voice on the line. His mother Grace had collapsed at the market. She was in a clinic. They weren't sure what was wrong. It might be her heart. They needed money for tests. Daniel gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles went pale. He wanted to run. He wanted to go home immediately. He wanted to sit beside his mother and hold her hand and tell her everything would be fine. But he had no money. The bus fare alone was more than he had. He stood in that hallway for a long time. Then he walked back into the exam room. He sat down. He picked up his pen. He thought, the best thing I can do for my mother right now is pass this exam. He finished. He scored the highest mark in his class. His mother recovered. It was exhaustion, years of carrying too much for too long. When he finally visited her that holiday and held her hands in his, he noticed for the first time how small they had become. How tired. "I'm going to fix everything, Mama," he told her. She smiled at him, that same smile from years ago. Love and sadness, all at once. "You already are," she said. Daniel was accepted to medical school. Full scholarship. The day he received the letter, he did not shout or celebrate wildly. He sat quietly. He took out the worn-out notebook, the one he had carried since he was 8 years old. He turned to the very first page. Written there, in a child's unsteady handwriting, "I will become a doctor." He closed the notebook. Then he went outside and looked up at the sky for a long, long time. Medical school was 6 years of the hardest work of his life. He dissected. He diagnosed. He stayed awake for 36 hours at a time during hospital rotations. He saw pain up close, real pain, the kind that changes you. But every time he was exhausted, every time he wanted to give up, he remembered a boy on a mat on the floor, staring at the ceiling, thinking. He graduated on a bright Saturday morning. His mother sat in the front row. She was wearing a new dress, the first new dress she had owned in 15 years. Daniel had bought it for her. When they called his name, Dr. Daniel Osei, Grace stood up. She didn't clap. She just stood up straight, with tears running silently down her face, and she looked at her son walking across that stage. That was enough. That was everything. And now, let's look at some of the beautiful English phrases we used in today's story. We said his mother's voice cracked slightly. This means her voice broke a little with emotion. We crack when we are trying to be strong, but feeling breaks through. We said Daniel burst into tears. This is a powerful phrase. You don't just cry. You burst like something that was held in, suddenly released all at once. We said doubt felt like something cold and heavy sitting on his chest. This is called a metaphor. We describe feelings as physical things because sometimes words alone are not enough. And we said Grace carried too much for too long, for simple words that described an entire lifetime. The best English isn't always complicated. Sometimes the most powerful sentences are the simplest ones said at exactly the right moment. Just like Daniel, just like his mother. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, wherever you are starting from, the story isn't over yet. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.